Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's episode. Hopefully, my voice is loud and clear. The disconnection of inner lives with the outer world. You know, for today's or tonight's episode, I would say that I would like to share a commentary on what I feel is happening. Of course, I'm 1 in 8 billion human beings on a planet spinning in the middle of a universe with countless stars and galaxies. So I am providing a commentary from a micro position as an existential entity. But I was thinking of providing a commentary on what I feel is happening on the planet in regards to the psychology of a species, and this is a bold endeavor, but I shall walk this path. The idea is simply that I feel the story that human beings in 2022 are accepting about what they are or the world they're in, it's as if there is missed or hidden angles to life. And in one of these angles, it's as if there was a different story altogether to the human intelligence compared to, what our mortal fear shapes, sculpts. I have envisioned that in the future, the past will not be a burden. That is true advancement. So I'll start from here. What do I mean by inner life and outer life? So I'm this person who I have developed this idea I call Mr.Within's inner and outer realmism. And pretty much in my own personal study of my own intelligence, I realized that imagination seems to be happening in an invisible room. What that means is before I'm vocalizing these thoughts, they are present in my moment of awareness. And so when you truly wonder about the depth of the nature of the human being, we're wondering about the edge of worlds, pretty much. We're playing that game with the cosmos. Knowledge is in some sense trying to catch the unknown, and the unknown is bigger than knowledge. So knowledge is like an eternal attempt. You can say knowing, the action of knowing, that's an immortal or eternal being's job. A temporary being doesn't per se need to know the truth of reality in its ultimate state. It doesn't need to be like Arjuna asking Krishna, hey, avatar of God, in this book called Bhagavad Gita, show me your true form. And God reveals his true form, and it is so beyond the conception of Arjuna that he gets overwhelmed and he gets scared. So the truth can be way beyond our eyes, and so as a species we require to find contentment with this, and then in some sense activate the most efficient advanced moments fathomable in civilization. Pretty much the idea is that there is 8 billion plus creatures on this planet, and they are not synchronized. You see, the story we're given, we're conditioned into, is that we are our body, we are this physical entity, and this physical entity is like a traveler in existence. So it's as if, imagine there was no concept of death and there was the concept of traveling. Right, as if you were a multidimensional traveler rather than an unlucky person in one dimension. So it's in some sense a multidimensional being is not defined by its limitations. It is actually activated by its limitations. You see, I mean, on some level, like, of course, there's a physical existence to the human being, and it's as if, like, when we look in the mirror, we don't see our thoughts reflecting back, we see our body reflecting back. The human being is starting in like a first person point of view elemental game, a game where instead of pixels it's the periodic table. And now the human being goes on entertaining this notion that I'm a body, but the way I know I'm a body is because I have a mind. And if you ask a lot of people, they will acknowledge instantly, of course, man, I have a mind. Are you trying to be rude? And you'll see everybody has a mind, but if you ask, if aliens came down to Earth and they asked the human species, hey, what is the mind? We wouldn't be able to tell them. Aside from telling them that we're biological film projectors where neurons are hallucinating psychology, that's the materialistic ending. Or resolve. It's as if we're living at a time where every human being alive is acting like they know what they are. This is really what's happening. The solidification of personality. It's as if attention is obsessed with shape. And because it is obsessed with shape, it's like in a changing world, it's shape jumping. Okay, jumping from one shape to another shape to another shape. Now, the question has to come, who is jumping? And then additional dimensions of perception can be added. You see, time has divided the world. Space has contained it. Now, this is what I feel. I feel personally, this is really the story of what's going on with human psychology in 2022. It's not satisfactory. It is devoid of the multidimensional, and we have, in some sense, made a type of civilization 1.0 wants to see it, to believe it, not realizing that what is looking through the eyes cannot be seen. You know, in the Vedas, there's this quote where it says, the seer of the seen is unseen. That means right now, the awareness that you are looking through your eyes, that awareness can't be looked at. It's being the whole moment. Now, when it comes to inner life and an outer life, again, we're living in that historic time where the future generations may giggle if they looked at us now, where the inner lives of human beings is hidden to the outer life. You know, in a collective mind civilization, you know, a hive mind civilization, that wouldn't be the case. But for now, what's happening, it's as if we were hunter-gatherers of our tribe back in the day, right? And people would go hunt buffalo or find berries and bring it back, hunt and gather that back to the tribe. Now we have reached a point where what we require to bring back to the tribe is first an acknowledgement that we are one species. We are members of the same species. That is a huge advancement. When that happens, all the isms pretty much stop. You know, there's no longer any distinction aside from humanism, right? We in some sense, I don't know what the term would be, but we hold sacred the idea of the natural, simple human being. Now, the inner lives of human beings in 2022, for every person it's held in their inner realms. The reason of this is, how would I say this? It's kind of like what we experience in that place or that state of being where we call imagination and visualization and memory, where we are experiencing our third sight. Is in some sense, it's as if what a person experiences is what a person communicates is like the tip of the iceberg of what is actually going on behind their eyes. You see, it's kind of like, imagine the outer realms, the world we find, the physical common denominator world between all human beings we find in front of our eyes. The issue what the problem is that in some sense, imagine cultural acceptance has become like a doorway, right? And it's a doorway that doesn't fit all sizes of beings. And so what's going on is, rather than having 8 billion innovators on the planet, we are in some sense 8 billion followers to maintain a system kind of situation, right? To me, it's as if it's like a person fathoms like a genius in history, and then a person fathoms, what if every human being had a sort of hidden genius to activate? What if there were there was a treasure behind your eyes, and how you lived your lifetime was its revelation? You see, our inner lives are very sophisticated, and something that usually in psychology isn't talked about is because in the house there are human states of mind that are dehumanized. Okay, this is something where I could totally understand like professors at university avoiding this topic, but it's so important. You know, it's so important to recognize that to be human is an effort of maintaining attention in a certain way. And the easiest way to maintain attention is to care for something. When a person cares for something, it's as if their life force lives with that archetype, with that vision. You know, now imagine you're a human being who you have somehow fallen in love with the greatness of the potential of this universal sector. Okay, you care for the greatest advancement of not just human life, not just planetary life, not just galactic life, but at the edge of conception, that life. You see, human beings have been bestowed with an incredible ability to exist to themselves before they actually animate physically. You see, that is really the genius of human intelligence. We actually experience a world, and kind of like copy pasting in Photoshop, the brain brings that into the inner realms, and in the inner realms it can become unconditional and malleable. So what do I mean by this? That means right now I'm looking at my computer screen. Now I can close my eyes and visualize this computer just like expanding in size. Now in reality, in the outer realms, it's just the same size, but behind my eyes I had the freedom to envision the shift of what I had seen in front of my eyes. Now, the disconnect I feel that is happening in people's inner lives, and don't think I have, this applies to every human being. Excuse me. To focus on the disconnection of the inner life with the outer world. Honestly, what the view is that if we treat human intelligence as an expression, that means it's like to be human is to express yourself as a human. If a robot in the future wears a top hat and bows like an Englishman, okay, that robot is like, its behavior is human. The source of the behavior may not be human, but the behavior is human. Same thing in the future kind of situations where artificial life or clone lives will matter, right? So the idea is that what humanity is really is a space for the new to enter. Now, when it comes to people's inner lives, I would say something like, I feel that we're all performing. So from the moment I wake up in the morning and I log into my conscious waking state, pretty much my eyes open, to the world. Whenever that happens to me, I recognize it's like an engine. So it's like something has started, the gears have started rolling, right? So what it is, it's like the moment there is physicality, the awareness to physicality provides access to a non-physical dimension, you know. The most fascinating thing about imagination is that we can see it, but we can't touch it. Pretty much the ability of the outer civilization to acknowledge the full capacity of the individual human being is missing. What do I mean by this? I mean that in an advanced civilization, the civilization will not wait for people to contact it. An advanced civilization's aim is to, in some sense, reduce the blind spots of all human beings. In some sense, improve the efficiency percentage of every human life all the time. You know, that would be an advanced civilization. Imagine in the future a child celebrates his 19th birthday, and this robot appears at the front door the next day of the house of this kid, you know. And so this 19-year-old human being is staring at this like hovering spherical robot, and the spherical robot says, I am on behalf of the advanced civilization, certain abilities have been unlocked in, for example, the social system, right? So what it would mean is that unlike an Orwellian Big Brother, it's as if like the opposite, where I would say it's older brother, an advanced civilization. An advanced civilization cares for what has value. And every human life has value. Like in an advanced civilization, every human being born will automatically be a researcher of their own DNA. Your mind is your DNA's dance. The child, they call this is Jacques Lacan's mirror effect, where they say a child looks into the mirror when it's young and it notices itself. Personally, in my experience, I have a memory, one of my earliest memories, where I was just being in a room as present attention prior to any sort of language or even knowing my own name. Imagine having a memory from your childhood before you knew what your name was. Before you knew what language was. It was just sight. Now, the moment let's say the child's mind that has been born on this planet begins to engage with a sense of individualism, I think psychologists say something like by the age 12, 14, the child has a sense of individualism. So the moment the free will is exerting effort for action, it is in some sense clothed in subjectivity. So the idea of ourself becomes the driver of a whole moment, It's like poetically and hilariously, if the human being was seen as a car and you opened up the hood, right, you would see the brain, but you would also, once you turn on the car, you notice there is a driver in there. What I mean by this is that free will is contentless, staring at all content. What really freedom is it's like effortlessness. Effortless being, effortless knowing, effortless breathing. Do you see what I'm saying? It's like pretty much it's like behind the eyes of the human being is a character in a story that the free will, I don't want to say narrates, but the free will designs. Behind every person's eyes, there's a attributeless designer that chooses and selects perception. It's kind of like where antennas were receiving signals. Or imagine you put your hands in a river, you know, the water is going between your fingers, like you're feeling the water. Similarly, it's as if the human brain, its hands are in the river of another dimension. And so as thoughts come and go, your selection, your acceptance of what inner vision has come to you becomes your identity in the moment usually. So imagine a person sitting down, person A and person B, they've both sat down, you know, and they're having a conversation, and person A is listening and person B is, I don't know, let's say talking about apples, okay? You know, and person A suddenly starts having thoughts of like apples, oranges, bananas. Just imagine, I'm saying, the thoughts keep coming and going. It's like an escalator of people instead an escalator of ideology, right? So the thoughts are coming and going, right? And if the person's suddenly it becomes person A's time to talk, to respond to person B, whatever thought is there in the moment, in the inner realms, that's where the attention is starting from. Now in meditation, true meditation, the person doesn't go sit down to have like no thoughts. That's ridiculous. It's like the person sits down and starts watching how their mind happens, like a cinema. Like when you go to the movies, you watch the film, you don't think you're the film, but you watch it and you emotionally engage with it. Similarly, it's as if what thoughts are is like an inner film. But it's an inner film where the attention is also an actor and a director. So behind your eyes, you're an actor and director. In front of your eyes, you're just an actor. You know? Because honestly, the task of intelligence is to discover its source. That's the smartest thing that intelligence can do. Because the idea is once we know what we are, there is an instantaneous freedom of no longer trying to balance the nature. You know, it's as if it's like the person's looking for the truth of all truths. The moment you find that truth, all truths are, in some sense, you know, Earth was in heaven before heaven needed to exist for Earth. Anyways, inner lives, society, culture. Of course, I wouldn't say I am the most. I'm like some person who treats this world as if it's a prototype, but it's not the best version. And so that's how I live my life usually. But I would say if we were to wonder about how we can build an advanced movement, it would be as if advancement starting from the beginning. That means, let's say we looked at I gave a percentage to all the people on the planet, and imagine it was like a survey, and they asked like, are you balanced, are you proud of your life or not proud of your life? And let's say, imagine they took this percentage and they realized, like, I don't know, 60% of people on the planet were not proud of their life. You know, I don't know, let's just say for the sake of this example. It's as if that sense of pride is the absence of their inner self's actual engagement with reality. You see what it is? It's not like I'm someone who has the honor of a samurai. You know, sometimes I'm very silly, but I'll tell you, to me, what I've noticed is that human beings, the moment they have identities, the reason we have identities, it's as if we're trying to create connection links. So it's as if a person behind their eyes, they're looking at the world and it's meaning something, and then they see another person, and once they have a conversation with that other person, they see what other world existed. To me, anytime I talk to someone, it's as if I'm like, okay, let's see how this intelligence is expressing in front of me right now. Do you know? And so, the inner life, if it connects with the outer life, it has to connect in the sense like a crew of a spaceship. Okay? Human beings ultimately, because there's death and mortality, it's as if we seek belonging, really. It's like people don't just want belongings, they want to belong to an intelligent worldly event. I think this is why religions or ideological institutions, like they're very idealist institutions, they have large crowds. Why? Because really, the bizarreness of life, when you really look at it and you put aside the emotional dimension, we're just existing in somewhere. Do you see the bizarreness? We're on a rock spinning in the middle of nowhere. What part of that is normal? How can we act like things are normal on this planet? Obviously they're not. Obviously there's nothing normal about a changing world. And so it's as if when civilization 1.0 is so slow that there can be cultural discrimination, not realizing that as we speed up human intelligence, not too much, but as we speed it up a little bit, we discover multidimensional tolerance. That means not being tolerant for the world just fitting your worldview in one way. Some people, a lot, I remember we have outer realm dictators and we have inner realm dictators. Inner realm dictators, their world has been closed. Dictators, usually that's what they do. Right? They close a reality. I was raised in Iran, I know this. You limit information so people feel they're trapped inside walls, and then inside those walls you become the lawgiver. Right? That's the tragedy of course. To me, politics in the future, there's just going to be an AI advanced robot. It's like AI woke up, saw politics, and was like, what are these guys doing? Seriously. If aliens came down and they're like, can you guys stop fighting over fictional land so that we all, fictional boundaries of land, and realize you're all one planetary species headed for the stars? And people are going to be like, no aliens, we have investments. It's like, do you understand? Money is in some sense, not that money's wrong, it's energy ultimately. But I'll say it this way. It's as if you expected a creature to evolve and still be engaged in a natural lifestyle with its environment for the sake of artificial, luxurious survival. Natural survival is being avoided. Do you see what's happening? It's like, because we're in a changing world, I think deep down in all human intelligence, subconsciously, we know we can't hold on to anything. And because the species knows it's temporary, it lives for the intensity of livelihood. One of the most fascinating, I remember I had a discussion with my father, real father, and I asked him, what do you think this world is? Right? What's the point of this world? And he said one word. He said, to experience. That's 2 words, but the idea was to experience. So the idea, there is this philosophical view that nothing has to mean anything, and it's just like an experiential roller coaster. The more you're in the present, you're experiencing the front seat. The more you're unconscious or live unconsciously, you're in the past seat. Pretty much in life, we are either pilots of the moment or we are passengers of the moment. For example, young children, they are passengers of how their civilization is piloting them. But when they become responsible and capable to actually engage in advanced civilization, it's like an advanced civilization would in some sense try to cut the veil of shyness hiding genius from modernity. You see what I'm trying to say? I'm trying to say that it's as if our bodies have a sort of life and civilization to a 1.0, but it's as if the mind's life is not activated. And usually the content of the mind, what are its expression outlets, right? So it's as if, let's say there's an intelligent mind, it expresses itself. We have, for example, body language, how the body shifts in accordance to the inner signal, right? Signal of the inner life. And then we have, in some sense, our voice, our sound and communication, right? And then there's the whole level of how we wield language. If back in the day men had to know how to use swords and shields, nowadays it's pretty much how to receive and express communication through language. Really what people have called thinking is just like an unknown attention, classifying information in accordance to how far it sees. The inner lives don't have a grand stage, so think of it this way: there's 8 billion hidden performers behind the eyes of human beings, right? Every person's inner life is awaiting to express itself in the outer life, but the outer life has limited acceptance, right? So the idea would be either we start treating the human being as a multidimensional intelligence, right? Therefore providing multiple dimensions of freedom. It's kind of like this: if the world is small, there's going to be war. If the world is big, people don't have time for war. It's an exploration game. People don't realize technology has infused itself with the culture of human history. What that means is that human history is not just being, it's like the human psychology. I mean, this is pretty, I should probably say it. So think of it this way: there's the body's life, your outer life, and then you have your mind's life, your subjective sense of self, that's your inner life, and you also have a cyber life. Okay, so for example, for me, if in the future, like, the internet is saved as a, memory before human extinction, it's as if my voice would continue to exist in cyberspace. It's like an abode where information doesn't die, but its communicators do. I would like to see a global network of advanced communication. I'm pretty much walking that way in this life. Sometimes I wonder, what value does an advanced civilization have for people in the present? And to me, I've narrowed it down to the statement that the advanced civilization is the gift of the future to the past. You see, regular civilization is the gift of the past to the future, but an advanced civilization is the gift of the future to the past. Which means the more we advance, the more we liberate and activate the dreams of those before our time. I'll give you an example. Plato had this view of he believed in this dimension where it was just the world of forms, like a dimension of pure geometry. Okay? Personally, in my life, I've had experiences with that. But I would say this, that imagine in the future they create cyberspace, and a cyberspace where everybody's a geometrical shape, and it's as if Plato's dream became the reality of tomorrow. You see, really what it is I thought about this well, and I realized the purpose of the mind is to step outside. That's really it. When I think about why aren't we a telepathic civilization, and then I think about why do we have mouths and ears, it's as if there was an intention for the performance of communicating animals. It's as if we were designed not to just survive, but to express. It's as if you wonder, why am I surviving? And then you realize the value of the mind in an unknown world. I feel every human being in 2022 should start living like how people used to live in the Renaissance, as if you feel something big is going to happen, something very huge in civilization. You know, Rumi has this quote, he says, wherever you are, be the soul of that moment. And similarly, we are the ones alive now. You know, it's not enough to just physically exist. It is not enough to just mentally observe. It is now time for 8 billion points of advanced intelligence to activate. That's it. Everybody has to realize that we are explorers in the unknown rather than believers of a known simulation. For me, my inner life, it's based on the speed. So one day I wake up, and if I'm tired, my inner realms, it's slower. It's as if I'm becoming more of a passenger of the moment. But when I'm energetic or when I have inspiration, I feel again like the pilot of the moment. Now, I have this view, and it took me a while, but pretty much in 2011, I realized there's no way I can be my thoughts. Their thoughts may arise, but I cannot be them because they come and go. It's like the person thought they made a mistake and years passed by, and it's like that idea didn't even like occur to them. Do you see the nature of the mind? It comes and goes. So pretty much it's not like a person thinks, it's about what a person welcomes in their inner territory. There's moments where I have a sense of time. I feel the day is going slow, or I feel, when I attempt the mighty moments of my day, I feel like, okay, it's going fast. But there's days moments I've had where I'm like, man, this moment is too peaceful to even have a sense of time in it. I need a quick intermission, guys. I'll be back. You know, I was thinking about maybe what's another approach I could take to this idea of the disconnection of the inner life and the outer life. And I would say this, that imagine there's two parallel realities, okay? Imagine a parallel reality where you are bound by the laws and forces of nature, and a parallel reality where you're unbound. So imagine your inner life is acting like a limitless being, and your outer life is acting like a limited being, is expressing as a limited being. Now these two parallel realities are taking place, and the thing is that it's as if, imagine two dimensions wanting to contact each other. The only way is to create a bridge. And so what we really notice in this world, or at least I'm noticing right now, is that the bridge between the inner life and outer life for now is limited to the acceptance of expression. That means I personally believe that if there is an advanced civilization, and that advanced civilization provided a free opportunity for people to create art, the greatest artists would be born. You see, the issue is that the human value is still ethnocentric. That means 8 billion creatures on this planet have not matured to the level of being like, okay, let's for a second act like a planetary person. You know, a person who's identifying with the planetary position. It's as if, what chess game are you playing? Are you playing a chess game that is on a cultural level, right? You're only concerned with what happens in your small world, or are you focused in regards to a chess game on a planetary level? For me, I was living as a cultural entity until I realized what the culture's bound is headed for the stars. That means we should start acting like the outer space is our backyard. That's truly advanced. The disconnection of the inner life, it's like it requires the inner self to put an effort, and it requires the world to put an effort. So pretty much this is the solution. Individual human beings, wherever you are, you start creating gatherings of advanced communication. So pretty much philosophy groups, I've envisioned it as School of Athens 2.0, but it's what happens is wherever you are in the world, you utilize the position of getting people who have minds, who are intelligent human entities, and in some sense, what it is that every person has lived a life that others have. It doesn't matter how many coughs or how many sounds the jet engine made. Really, there is something where there is, I feel it's like a force field. There's a force field between the inner life and outer life, and it's like the narrow passageway of language. Human beings have to start advancing language. This is something teachers don't teach because they can't add words, right? But really, what's going on is that we have not capably put words to everything. It's impossible, really. That means this is what a lot of teachers who just, vocally, like, a true teacher opens the human beings each harbor a world behind their eyes. That world deserves to be shared in the outer worlds. The inner life has to either whatever world your attention is on, your beliefs are arising from that. Now, let's say there's an outer world and an inner world, and let's say somebody in their inner world, they see an advanced civilization, and the outer world, they don't see an advanced civilization. Now, their beliefs can come from their inner world, so them being like, no, the periodic table can't advance, came two things. From two things came infinite things. From infinite things, nothing was real. Really what it is, it's like if I was to give a sort of cycle, not for the soul, but a cycle for how existence animates, it's honestly oscillating between these. That means any moment I look at it, I can notice that there's space. That's the number 0. I can any moment envision that there is the singular. This is the number 1. You know, it's like I'm in one world. And then I can acknowledge that I am in one world, but the world, because it has chaos and order, has a dualistic function. Because I'm a biological self separate from, the physical world. It's as if the duality cannot be ignored. Duality is preserving life. Beyond duality, it's like human idea has no meaning. Conscious look like? And the answer would be, if we built it well, it'd be just like how we're experiencing life. We fear machines, not realizing we created them. And we fear the world, not realizing it created us. It's as if a person in a sort of divine orchestration of a context to reality is as if like, okay, why have I become this chess piece on the chessboard of this planet? Why? What is the inspiration of the movement? And really what it is exploration of the unknown. And maintenance of the known to enhance the exploration of the unknown. Knowledge is a companion. That means what we call knowledge, I'm gonna, predict it. In the future, there's gonna be this next level, like, it's like what was Jarvis in the Iron Man movie is gonna be this AI called knowledge in the future. You see, information maintenance, pretty much it's like this, that your eyes are watching, and once you realize the watcher is being the whole state, where our eyes go, the world seems to turn towards. Honestly, what I care about is that all the human beings that are alive now just max out their attempt for their furthest reach for the future. We are reaching a point where there's going to be a futurist renaissance. I know it. That human beings, in wherever they're alive, they're going to start from wherever their direct experience happening, advancing. It's like this. It's like somebody doing an action, let's say somebody driving a car, and then they're like, let's say they're not confident, and then they suddenly think like, wait a minute, there's people on the planet right now who are driving a car in an incredible way. It's as if the person knows it's possible, just requires to activate the perception. I personally think if a person is dishonest, you can't think. You can't use your inner realms. But if a person is honest, that means they have a center point of trust. That means it's as if like, if a person doesn't trust their own eyes, then they have become an orphan in the realm of information. Reality is very supreme. Every day it's like, I remember it's like starting from my own metaphysical thoughts on myself, it became more like the world has its own nature. The world is alive. Imagine just right now, wherever you are, imagine civilization was on a giant turtle's back and you went and put your palm on the neck of the turtle and suddenly the whole civilization realized, no way, we are living on life. Not just in it. Now, does it matter how connected the inner lives are to the outer world? Does it care? I mean, is it important? The only way it's important is if the future can use what the present can do now. For me, I want to see, because I want to see what an advanced civilization looks like, I want to see the most advanced state that human beings can experience. And to me, the most advanced state that human beings can experience is first a context of freedom, okay? And then, in the context of freedom, a person's intelligence can move openly, very multidimensionally. And then we conceptualize in the sectors of that freedom. You see, reality is honestly an advanced civilization in the future is going to be like a tourist agency. And every person being born in an advanced civilization is like a traveler. And when sky cities are invented, I predict 600 years from now, we'll start living like true three-dimensional beings. I don't know, guys, this is such a big topic. I guess one last thing I'll say is that honestly, I don't know what's going to happen here. I meet the unknown every day, pretty much. And all I know is that there's potential. It's like to the level of a fact that 8 billion human beings, if they can make a wrong decision, they can make a right decision. But what is the right decision? I think it would be the efficiency of all sectors of human life. So it would be another way of saying, if everybody is alive efficiently behind their eyes, an outer advanced civilization just automatically happens. You see, it's the standard, it's the style, it's the stories we dress our psyche in, right? It's the cultures we have accepted as possibilities of behavior, but beyond what we know, it's like the undiscovered stares back. Right now, as I'm giving this talk, people might not believe it, but I feel like the unborn is listening to me. I'm not just giving this podcast for those who are alive. It's for those who will be. The most powerful movement of advancement would be, in some sense, imagine like the pilots of the future advanced civilization. they will not only be care to archive everything in the inner realms of human beings, but also their efficient transition into the outer realms. A world that doesn't care for its own genius allowed a flaw to become its ultimate law. You see, it's as if when else can you fathom greatness? You know, it's only in this small, limited human framework where we are like, okay, there's something bigger, let's run towards it, right? But beyond this life, whether you entertain Rene Descartes' mind-body dualism, right? Where you're like, okay, my body goes away, you know, kind of like rent-a-karma, you know, the body goes back to the periodic table. And then you look at it in regards to the mind, and you're like, if the mind exists in a dimension beyond the material dimension, the mind doesn't die. So therefore, what do you call that between lifetime state as a Buddhist? I don't know the exact word, Buddhist word, but to me, that between birth and death is actually nothing. And nothing stands as a truth. That means if somebody was like, hey, Mr. Within, everything means nothing, right? And I would just stare at them silently and say, sure. If somebody came and said, Mr. Within, it's all one God, one intelligence, one universal being, I'd stare at them and be like, sure. If somebody was like, no, the world is divided between chaos and order, and it's just pure randomity when the chaos and order can't sync, you know, and I'd be like, sure. And somebody could come, Mr. Within, this world is infinite. You know, we're all infinite beings, energies, infinite energy can't die, infinity, infinity to the power of infinity, you know, and I'll be like, sure. But then there's also another answer, silence. Silence is where the mind sees itself before it is a self. Really, a person has to care for their outer life and their inner life. The civilization 1.0 keeps the outer life so occupied that people don't have a chance to actually build their inner life. You know, this is why YouTube content has become so important. This is why people, the self-help industry is like one of the biggest industries. Why? It's one of the biggest industries because everybody could improve. Do you see what I'm saying? The same amount of energy it takes to see a world that has failed is the same amount of energy it takes to envision a world that is successful. It's like literally the same energy. If a person, let's say, is weak, they think they're weak, it's like it takes the same amount of energy for the brain to just think, no, I'm strong, right? The presumption and the true knowing of the presumption, you see, at your core, there is no such thing as psychology, I would say. I would say more, it's like two unknown worlds trying to synchronize, or let me say it differently. It's just like unknown intelligent events are taking place on the planet. And because attention holds life, like our definitions, the value system starts from the human position. An advanced civilization would probably entertain dehumanized states of consciousness. That means if a robot says, I'm human, it would be like you are dehumanized. You have a dehumanized humanity. Do you know, if an alien lands on the earth and let's say our advanced civilization is so great that it's like, you know, there's aliens from other planets coming to live among human beings, right? It would be as if we would say to those aliens that you are dehumanized humans. That means what the human is like the physical, biological body of the human, and then it is also the psychological attitude of the human, so a physiological level and a psychological level. Whoever you are, just realize this, that you have one lifetime to show the world what you could have been. That's it. To me, life is just honestly, it's a performance. It's an energetic event, and if the energetic event is stable enough, there comes the domain of psychology. If the psychology is stable enough, there comes a sort of bliss state of just by knowing that your attention is existing, that becomes a source of bliss. And then poetically, you're in samadhi all the time. It's like the person realized before they needed to get into a samadhi, they were in a samadhi before they were born. Their eyes had seen before they could. That's the knowing of mysticism. It's as if you don't fear the dehumanized, you rather care for truth so much that as if it doesn't matter what masks it, what covers it. It's as if you break the disguises of duality. You break the disguise of the singularity. You just break the disguise of the infinite and the void and the unknown for the beyond time, for the first timeless moment ever. The unknown is unknown. So in some sense, just realizing a 4.5 billion year old opportunity to share worlds behind our eyes, that in the outer realms, unless we communicate them, unless we land our inner realms in the outer realms, it's as if there is no subjective existence. If language is paint, we require to be great painters. And when a person realizes ultimately what language is that harbors, that holds knowledge, language is symbolism, and the symbolism is trying to capture a direct experience. This is why people like poetry. Why? Because it holds within its abstraction details that in a sort of linear fashion cannot be communicated. And so I guess this ends the commentary. Thank you for listening, and whoever you are, your attention, you are the pilot. Who else can pilot your intelligence? All those people who feel they're inefficient or insufficient their life, just for a second wonder, who is moving this whole moment? And you'll realize the power source. There's a hidden power source behind the eyes the moment it finds freedom, and it's like beyond blissed out laughter. It is the realization that nothing was nothing from the beginning. And so everything is a joy that in some sense it's as if, for me really, it's kind of like this is what gratefulness taught me as a sort of psychological parameter. That every day the world is gifting you its change. And it's like if the world was a giant, and every day we wake up, we're on the shoulder of the giant, we're noticing how the giant moves. Civilization 1.0 is a great achievement compared to the savageness we had to step out of. But now Civilization 2.0 is a civilization for human beings that realize that they can observe various angles of meaning to a single moment. When you can't observe various angles of meaning, the ideology possesses you and hatred starts. That means if you think someone's just always a bad person, or you think someone's always a good person, it's as if an unnatural snapshot occupies a dynamic changing world. For me, the great privilege of the human life is to walk alongside the cosmos. And if you're wise, you in some sense honor it. Like, sometimes I'm like, no way, I'm existing and a universe is happening. And there's this level of sophisticated data storage in regards to history. We're living in a great time where even though to the future we will seem like the primeval, we would appear as basic pioneers, but what the tools we have access to have now extended into a psychological level. For the next 100 years, the advancement of communication is going to be the people will realize it is the most important thing. After such a long time, it was like compared to the 4.5 billion years age of the world. So we go back to a certain point where we're like, okay, or actually we noticed that language developed yesterday in regards to that time span. Like 5,000 years ago, writing developed. The Earth is 4.5 billion years of a journey. Do you see what I'm saying to you? it's as if language is a recent acquisition. It is a gift from another dimension. Or it's kind of like ancient mythology would say Mother Earth, Father Sky. It's like the gift of Mother Earth is the biological life, and the gift of Father Sky is, in some sense, the psychological life. And so, honestly, what else can I say? Advance while you can. For greatness, its potential is there before it's actualized, really. For anybody who lives in a way that human beings have never lived before, you were ahead. Because honestly, it's one lifetime to truly be physically. We all want to be part of a great progress. And now, if civilization becomes honest and very mindful, that means an advanced civilization will care for the psychological domains of human beings. It's like cruelty would be out of the picture. Why did we ever need that inefficiency? Anyways, thanks for listening. Much blessings and namaste.